Hi everyone, welcome to the channel. My name is Nick Cosgrove and I'm back with this week's No Filter Q&A. This is the episode where I answer all questions related to diet, training, and supplementation that I've received over the last 7 days from our in-house clients, online clients, as well as a few of our online followers. Remember, if you have any questions related to your nutritional plan, workout program, supplements you are currently taking, not taking, or considering taking, please feel free to email me those questions at nick@foreverfitperformance.com, or you can DM me your questions on my Instagram at fitcosgrove_. All right, let's get started with this week's No Filter Q&A with question number 1. Nick, what do you think about decline presses for the chest? I've heard they are really good for building up the overall chest. Okay, personally, I'm not a fan of decline presses, okay? And there's a few reasons for this, but the main reason is because I find that decline presses put too much stress on the rotator cuffs. If you ever watch when someone's doing a decline presses and the bench is on a decline and you're doing a chest press, regardless if it's with a barbell or with dumbbells, your range of motion is very limited and your shoulders are compromised because of this. So you're putting a lot of strain on the joints themselves, okay? So in this case, it'd be the rotator cuffs. The other reason I don't like decline presses, if you look at pectoralis major as a whole, it's predominantly located on the upper side of your chest, not the lower side. So you're going to get the most results and you're going to work the most efficient area of the muscle bellies in the pectoralis major and minor if you focus more on incline work versus decline work. Okay. Also, the great thing when performing incline presses or even flat presses is that you have a greater range of motion and you put far less strain on your rotator cuffs and your shoulders as a whole. Okay. So this is why I don't recommend doing decline presses, for the simple reason that it puts the shoulders in a very compromised position, puts a lot of strain on the rotator cuffs, and also you're not going to get great overall chest development. Okay. So for a good chest workout, I usually recommend that people do at least two incline movements, one being a low incline press, one being a high incline press. If you want to do something for the pec minor with flies, I'd even go on a low incline dumbbell fly as well. So you get 3 exercises, but at least two incline presses. So a typical chest workout could look like something like a low incline barbell press, a high incline dumbbell press, a flat barbell press, throw in some cable crossovers, and then finish up with some low incline dumbbell flies. I find that's a great way to build up your chest muscles. Okay. And this works both ways for both men and women, because at the end of the day, men and women, we actually have the same muscle fibers. Men and women both have pec major, both have pec minor. The breast tissue is obviously different due to estrogen levels, but the muscle bellies are still the same. Okay. So I would train a man and a woman the exact same way for sure for a chest workout and focus more on incline work, less on decline work. Like I said, you can do decline work if you like. I know there's a lot of people out there who enjoy decline presses and feel they offer a lot of benefits. But in my experience working with the general population, watching people do decline presses, it just looks to me like there's more shoulder activation, less chest activation, and a lot of pressure and stress put on the rotator cuffs. For that reason, I don't recommend doing decline presses. All right, next question. Nick, I'm 130 pounds man and have difficulty adding on size. I know this is mainly because I undereat. The problem is that I get full so quickly whenever I eat. Are there any foods that I can consume in order to get more calories without getting too full too fast? Okay, so it sounds to me like you're the ectomorph body type. You're what we call a hard gainer. Fast metabolism, fairly lean, and when you don't eat, you lose muscle, not fat. You probably don't have much fat to lose, right? If you're 130 pounds. So there's good and bad with these body types, right? So someone who's like, say, an endomorph, that's someone who puts on fat very easily, but that person will also put on muscle very easily. Someone in your case who's what we call an ectomorph, you'll lose fat very easily, but you also lose muscle very easily. So when you go for a prolonged period of time of not eating, your body goes into what we call a catabolic state and it eats muscle, right? So in your case, it's very important that we keep the calories high. Now, how high? Well, of course, that's going to depend on multiple factors. Your weight is just one of those factors. Lifestyle will be another. How often you're in the gym training, your training level, your training experience, your training intensity, all these things take into consideration. But with that being said, when it comes to what you should be eating, my recommendation is don't just eat anything. There's a lot of people out there who are what we call hard gainers, and they just try to eat high calorie foods. Like they go to McDonald's or KFC and just consume all these calories, but those calories are not going to be utilized in the proper manner, right? So you still want to make sure you're getting in clean calories, where you're looking at not just your macronutrients, but you're looking at your micronutrients, the quality of the foods you're consuming. So whenever I'm working with an ectomorph, I really try to front load them on the fats. Okay, so because fats are calorically dense, peanut butter, avocado, omega-3 eggs, salmon, extra virgin olive oil, walnuts, almonds. All these foods, they're healthy fats, and they're also very, as I said, calorically dense, which means we can put on more calories. So it can help you who struggles to put on weight, but not just weight, quality weight. Okay. So my recommendation to you would be to, rather than instead of just looking at one specific food group, is to look at your healthy fats. Those foods I mentioned, and there's plenty more out there. Those are the foods that I would incorporate more into your diet, because it's going to be a lot easier to consume, let's say 2 or 3 tablespoons of peanut butter than it is to consume 3 or 4 cups of brown rice, right? So that's why I don't recommend consuming too much carbohydrates, because carbohydrates will fill you up a lot faster. Fats will keep you fuller for a longer period of time, but it's easier to get them in each meal and therefore bump up your calories. Okay. The other end of the spectrum here is when I'm working with someone who's trying to lose weight, I watch how much fats I give them for that exact same reason, because fats are calorically dense. So I back off the fats. I don't give them as much fats, right? Unless I'm working with someone on somewhat of a ketosis plan, then obviously I'm going to give them more fats and no to low carbohydrates. Okay. So that's my recommendation. If you struggle putting on weight, really try to increase your fats. Make sure those fats are healthy fats. And as I said, those foods I mentioned, they're great. If you're not too sure how to put a nutritional plan together, it's to your benefit to work with an experienced coach that can help you and guide you and figure out a formula that works specifically for you, and tailor that program from a week-to-week basis and make revisions and changes along the way based on the results that you're achieving or not achieving. If you'd like more information on the nutritional plans that I design for clients, you can always email me at nick@foreverfitperformance.com, or you can DM me on my Instagram at @fitcosgrove_. All right, next question. Nick, is it better to do leg exercises with higher weight and lower reps, or lower weight and higher reps? In my experience with legs, and actually not just with legs, but with all muscle groups, higher reps, lower weight works best. In addition, high volume. Okay. And when I say high volume, I mean lots of sets. So not just 4 sets per muscle group. You can do 5 sets for an exercise, right? And you can do 20 sets for a muscle group, 25 sets for a muscle group. And when I say low weight, I don't mean ridiculously low weight. The weight should still be a challenge, but it should be a weight that you should be able to get anywhere from 10 to 15 reps. And I've talked about this in the past, the importance of trying to stay in double digits. A, to avoid injury, and B, to actually build solid, lean, dense muscle. There's nothing wrong with doing single digit reps, but single digit reps are going to build strength. They're not really going to build muscle. You're going to get stronger, and you might build, yes, you're going to build some muscle, but the muscle you're going to build is not going to be quality, lean, dense muscle. Okay. It's going to be that thick, big muscle that you see a lot of power lifters develop, right? So most people who work with me anyway, they don't want to look like a power lifter. They don't want to look like a strongman. They want to have a nice, lean, toned physique. I can't believe I used the word toned. So many people are using the word tone these days, and now it's rubbing off on me. But that's the physique that most people I work with want to obtain. So for that reason, I recommend staying in double digits, not just for legs, but for every muscle group you train. Now, when it comes to the high volume training, if you're really trying to build that dense, lean muscle, this is where it comes into doing different types of training: supersets, giant sets, circuit training, drop sets, rest pause reps, adding in different ways to surpass plateaus. So it's not always about increasing the weight. Okay. In fact, when it comes to increasing intensity, increasing the weight to me is the last thing I look at. There's so many other ways to increase intensity in the gym. You can decrease your rest periods, right? Like I said, you can add in supersets, giant sets, circuit training, drop sets, all these ways of adding more intensity to your workouts without even increasing the weight. Okay. So that's what I would look for. And when it comes to legs, you have to remember your quadriceps, hamstrings, glutes are primarily fast twitch muscle fibers. Fast twitch muscle fibers respond best to high volume, high repetition training. So just remember that when you are going through your next leg workout. Okay. Next question. Nick, are there any supplements that I can take to help reduce soreness after my workouts? The supplement companies will tell you there are. But in my experience, really, if you're training hard and you're training intense, unfortunately, soreness just comes with the game. Okay. There's people that will say, oh, glutamine works. Well, okay, glutamine might help a little bit, but you're not going to notice significant differences taking glutamine. In my experience, any over-the-counter supplement, whether it's glutamine, creatine, weight gaining powders, the pre-workout powders, they will work to some extent, but they're not going to work like, let's say, anabolic steroids, right? Or antibiotics or prescription-based drugs. These are the drugs that you can, or the supplements that you can just walk into your local supplement store and buy. So you're not going to notice significant changes. And I always tell clients, I wouldn't waste my money on stuff like that. I'd put my money more towards my food bill. Okay. So I'm a firm believer in making sure that I always get high quality foods. And as most people know, I spend a lot on foods, but I'm a firm believer that in order to fuel my workouts properly and fuel my body in order to do my training, I need to eat in an efficient manner. I need to eat good quality food. So I put my money towards food, not supplements. Okay. So in my experience, no. There are some people that will say Epsom salt baths help. And like I said, some people are firm believers in using glutamine, but in my experience, it's just part of the game. What I do notice though is that the longer people train, the less sore they are. So if I train someone who hasn't trained with me in like 6 months and they do a leg workout, they're usually sore for about a week. But if someone's training legs with me on a weekly basis, they're going to be sore for 2 or 3 days. By that fourth or fifth day, they're feeling fine again. Okay. So it's sore, but it's not excruciating where you can't move. So if you're someone who's new to the gym and you're feeling like, oh my God, I'm always sore, I want to stop. Try to move through that hump because it will get better. I promise you. Your body will adapt. And once your body adapts, you won't be as sore. And remember, soreness is not an indicator of a good workout. Just because you're sore during one workout versus another doesn't mean you had one good workout and one shitty workout. A lot of people find that after legs, they're very sore, but after they do like an arm workout, they're not that sore. Okay. And I always tell people the reason for that is when you do a leg workout, you're walking on your legs for the rest of the week. You're not really resting your legs. When you do an arm workout, you're not really using your arms throughout the day, right? I mean, what you're typing on the computer or you're carrying grocery bags, but you're not using them. You're not walking on your arms. So for that reason, your arms can rest, grow, and recover, but your legs are constantly being used. That's why most people actually are sore after leg workouts because they never get to rest. Right. So do not think that soreness is an indicator of a better workout because it's not. All right. Nick, how do I train my back for width versus thickness? I've heard these terms used many times, but I don't understand which exercises are good for the width and which exercises are good for thickness. Okay, good question. So when it comes to back training, there are what we call two terms, as you said, width and thickness, right? So the width is how wide your back is. The thickness is how thick and dense your muscles are. So think of it this way. When you're building a back, the goal is to build that V taper, right? That V taper back, nice lean little waist and what we call wings that stick out, the lats, right? So when it comes to building the width, you want to focus on your pull down movements or chin ups. Chin ups are good as well. So pull down movements could be something like a wide grip, lat pull down, a reverse grip, lat pull down, a closed grip, lat pull down. And you can even throw in some isolateral cable pulls where you're using different cables to split the lats as well. So those exercises are going to help create the width of the back, I should say, sorry. When it comes to building the thickness of the back, that's going to be predominantly built through doing exercises like rows. So that could be bent over barbell rows, bent over T-bar rows, seated cable V-bar rows, seated wide grip cable rows, one-arm dumbbell rows. Okay, there's actually a lot of exercises out there for the back because as I've talked about in the past, the back is the largest muscle group in the human body. It's not the legs. Okay, it's actually the back. So this is why it's important that when you're training your back that you do both a combination of pull downs and rows. If you're someone like me who's always had a weak back, I actually split the pulls and rows up into separate days so I can prioritize width one day and prioritize thickness on another day. Okay. But if you're someone who is maybe genetically gifted in the back and you don't have to work your back as much as I do, or you're doing a 3-day split where you're not able to split up your back into two workouts, I would give at least 2 pull down movements and 2 to 3 rowing movements. Okay. And that should be sufficient. Okay. So that's the difference. And you want to just make sure that, like I said, you're doing a combination of both pulling movements. So pull down movements, pull up movements, in addition to rowing movements. And that's going to be how you're going to balance off your back as a whole. Okay. Okay, Nick, should I prioritize the biceps or triceps for balanced arm growth? I'm wondering how I can balance both biceps and triceps to avoid creating an imbalance in my arm development. Okay, good question. So when it comes to arm training, I like to do supersets. Now, again, I'm at a private gym, so I have the luxury of supersetting. If you're in a commercial gym, that can be a little bit more challenging, not impossible, but it can be more challenging to be running from one station to the next, and you might have another gym member break into your superset, right? So I do like the superset for the simple reason I find that anytime I do any curling movements, my triceps are actually turned off. So as soon as I finish with, say, a barbell curl, I can immediately go down to the cables and do a cable rope extension, work my triceps. So it's agonist versus antagonist muscle groups. But if you can't do that and you're in a commercial gym and you can just do basic straight set training, which is set, rest, set, rest, set, rest, that's fine. But my recommendation is to go, for example, start your workout off with triceps for one exercise. Let's say rope extensions. Do you do your 4 to 5 sets? You move on next to your next station, biceps. You do some barbell curls. 4 to 5 sets, you move on back to triceps, do maybe some tricep press downs with a straight bar. Then you move on to make, say, some dumbbell curls with biceps. So what I'm saying here is go tricep, bicep, or bicep, tricep. Don't just front load your biceps at the first half of the workout and then finish off with triceps at the second half of the workout. Problem is when you do something like that is you're using the most of your energy at the beginning of your workout. So obviously in this case, your biceps are going to get the most stimulation. And in the second half of your workout, where you're a little bit more tired, a little more fatigued, you're not going to train with the same amount of intensity, obviously, because now your muscle, your glycogen in your muscle bellies are getting depleted. You're getting tired as a whole. And if you go onto your triceps, obviously you're not going to work them to the same degree. So if you don't want to create muscular imbalances in your arms, my recommendation is to superset them. And if you can't do that, just switch off from 4 or 5 sets of biceps to 4 to 5 sets of triceps and follow that pattern, or triceps versus biceps, whatever it is. But just make sure that you're doing one exercise biceps, one tris, and back to biceps, back to tris, and so on. Okay. And in my experience, that works best, because if you don't do that, you are going to create muscular imbalances and it's going to look funny. I know a lot of guys are guilty of this. Guys love to train their biceps, but a lot of times they neglect their triceps. And you see these arms that they look kind of weird. Like they've got this great peak. They've got that ball in the biceps, but they don't really have much triceps. This is a mistake because triceps actually make up about 70% of your arm, right? Your triceps have 3 heads. Your biceps only have 2 heads. The biceps are actually a very small muscle group. Lastly, what I would say when you're training arms, don't overtrain your arms, because don't forget when you're doing chest, back, shoulders throughout the week, your arms are getting hit indirectly. So there's no reason for you to go to an arm workout and do 60 sets, or there's no reason for you to train your arms twice a week. This is going to overtrain your arms. That's the one muscle group I always tell people they have to be very careful about overtraining, because we do use them so much during the workouts throughout the week. Okay. So just keep that in mind when you're training your arms, and just make sure that you are balancing them properly. Do 3 to 4 exercises for your biceps, 3 to 4 exercises for your triceps. Do a combination of cables and free weights just in order to work your stabilizers as well. And that should help you create great arm development with no muscular imbalances. Okay, next question. Nick, what's the difference between a neutral, pronated, and supinated grip for back exercises? Do different grips work different areas of the back? Excellent question. All right, so a neutral grip, palms in. These are great for things like T-bar rows, right? They're great for things like cable V-bar rows. You also use them when you're doing a one-arm dumbbell row, okay? So that's going to work what we call your inner lats, okay? Now, when it comes to a pronated grip, which is palms down, right? Like this is going to work more of your upper lats. So let's say you're doing a bent over barbell row, upper lats. Let's say you're doing a lat pull down, pronated grip, upper lats, okay? So that's going to help work your upper latimus dorsi. Now, when it comes to a supinated grip, which is an underhand grip, which is palms up, you can also do a reverse grip barbell row or a reverse grip pull down. That's going to work your lower lats. So when it comes to a back workout, I like to incorporate all 3 grips. So I might give someone, let's say, bent over barbell rows using a pronated grip, and I'll give them a reverse grip lat pull down using a supinated grip, and I'll give them bent over T-bar rows using a neutral grip, okay? So then they're working all 3 areas of the back. So that's a great question, because a lot of people, when I watch them do their back workouts, they typically stick to one grip. And when you do that, you're neglecting other areas of the back, okay? So as I mentioned in one of the other questions, the back is the largest muscle group in the human body. Therefore, if you want to maximize your results, you've got to hit it from multiple angles and use multiple grips, okay? So neutral grip, inside, right? palms facing together, inner lats, pronated grip, palms down, working your upper lats. And we're going into the supinated grip, which is going to work your lower lats with a reverse grip row or underhand grip pull down, something like that. Okay. But that's the difference between all three. Okay. Few more questions. Okay. Nick, why does it matter how long I rest in between sets? I feel if I take longer rest periods, as in 5 to 8 minutes in between sets, I can lift more weight for each set. Will this affect the results I achieve with my physique, though? Yeah. So another good question. So when it comes to rest periods, why I'm a huge advocate of minimal rest periods is if you allow that muscle to fully recover. Let's say you're doing bench press and you do an incline bench press, you're doing 45 aside, whatever weight you're doing. And then you decide to take a 5 minute rest period. By the time you get into that next set, your muscles have fully recovered. And yeah, you're going to be able to lift more weight, but you're not really challenging the muscle because you're working the muscle at full recovery. Another thing is if you're working a muscle, if you're taking that long in between sets, you also risk injury, right? Because what muscle needs to be warm. If you're working a muscle that cools down, you risk tearing or straining a muscle or a tendon or joint. So that's another reason why I don't recommend taking prolonged rest periods. But when we go back to building your physique, if you're resting too long and your muscle fully recovers, your body has no reason to recruit more muscle fibers to that area for growth to occur. So this is why this goes back to one of the first questions when I talked about powerlifters is when you look at powerlifters, they have muscle, but the muscle they're creating, it's not really sculpted. It's not that solid, lean, dense muscle. It's kind of bulky and thick. And that's not me putting down powerlifters. That's just me saying for their specific sport, it's not about looks. It's about strength. It's about power. So the way you're training, that's going to create a lot of strength. Like you said, you take 5 minute rest period, you're going to be able to keep increasing your weight, but you're not going to really be building that or sculpting that muscle belly because your muscle is fully recovered when you hit it again. Okay. So my recommendation is to keep your rest periods between 45 seconds to maybe 90 seconds max. And most people can do that. The reason why a lot of people don't do that is because of phones. And I see it time and time again. People get caught up on their phones. They're cruising Instagram, they're playing on TikTok, they're answering emails. And sure enough, 5 to 10 minutes go by before they do their next set. And to me, the phones are a distraction. I've been talking about this for 10 plus years now. When you're working out, you should be able to shut off the outside world for at least an hour. Like, I mean, Jesus, I run a business and I'm able to do it. So, I mean, if I can do it, why can't you do it? Right. So you need to be focused. And the thing is, when you're not playing on your phone, that 90 seconds to maybe 45 seconds, by the time that goes by, you're ready to go again because you're focusing on your next set. You're not just going to sit there and stare in space. You're ready to go. There's no distractions. Okay. You should be thinking about your next set. You should be thinking about your form, your technique. Should I be adding more weight? Should I be taking out some weight? Whatever it is. Thinking about the next exercise that's going to come afterwards, right? So that's what you should be thinking about when you're training, right? And really trying to develop that mind to muscle connection. And for me, I can't develop a mind to muscle connection if I'm doing, let's say, a bench press where I'm really trying to focus on squeezing my pecs, taking my shoulders out of the equation, taking my triceps out of the equation, and really just trying to isolate my pectoralis major and minor, and then going back to playing on TikTok for 5 minutes and then going back to mind to muscle connection. I can't do that. I need to focus, and I need to focus for my workouts. I've talked about this in the past. They're no longer than 45 minutes, 50 minutes max. But if I can focus for that time and stay in the workout, both physically and mentally. All right. Last question. Nick, do you still think age isn't a factor after watching Logan Paul destroy Mike Tyson last night? Yeah, so I did receive this question on Saturday. I answered it briefly in one of my Instagram stories, and so I'll answer it here again. But yes, I still stand by what I originally said, that age is not a factor. But you have to remember, when I said that age is not a factor when it comes to building muscle, losing fat, and overall performance in your sport of choice, what I've always said in addition to that is that if you are someone who has been training consistently throughout your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, your 50s, your 60s, your 70s, why would you be any worse than someone who's in their 20s? So in Mike Tyson's case, someone who's 58 training against someone like Logan Paul is 27. If Mike Tyson had been training throughout his 30s, throughout his 40s, throughout his 50s, why would Logan Paul beat him? If anything, Mike Tyson would probably destroy him because he's got years of experience on him. Okay. So I don't think age is a factor when it comes to these things. I really don't. And I know there's a lot of people who think I'm crazy and say, no, no, as you get older, listen, as you get older, there's more mileage on the body. There's more wear and tear on the joints and tendons, right? Of course, right? You're more susceptible to injuries because you are getting older and there is more wear and tear. It's like an older house, right? An older car, of course. But if you're upkeeping that house and you're upkeeping that car and you're upkeeping that body, there's no reason it should break down. And I think we're going to see in years to come, people who are in my age demographic, once they hit in their 60s and 70s, they're a lot more healthy than people of today. Because people of today, and I can tell you, I train a lot of them who are in their 60s and 70s, they weren't weightlifting when they were in their 20s and 30s. I was weightlifting as a teenager. I was weightlifting in my 20s and my 30s. And as I begin to enter my 40s, I feel better now than I did in my 20s. And I honestly do think I could outtrain someone who was in their 20s. Okay. So I think the same thing goes for sports. And it just comes down to the consistency. Now, obviously, when you look at things like hockey and stuff like that, those guys are putting a lot of wear and tear on their body over the years because they're playing the sport day in and day out. But I'm talking about someone like Tyson. I'm not saying he has to fight every day of the year. I'm saying but if he kept up his training, he kept up, his shadow boxing, he kept up his sparring, he kept up everything, his skipping, he kept up his cardiovascular. There's no reason why when the day of the fight comes that he's not ready. Okay. So I don't think it was a good fight. I knew Logan Paul would win for the simple reason that Mike Tyson wasn't training. But if you go back a few videos back in the summer when I talked about this fight, I said, don't underestimate someone like Tyson because he does have muscle maturity and he does have muscle memory. But obviously his conditioning wasn't there. The legs weren't there, right? So it was a pretty obviously uneven match. And anyone who saw it would agree that it wasn't even close. So it goes to show you that if you're consistent with your training, though, and I've talked about this again, I'll talk about it one more time. I have clients who are in their 50s and 60s who I know could outtrain some of my clients that are in their 20s. I know they can because they've been training for a longer period of time. Okay. So it just comes down to your fitness level. Age, I'll say it again, in my opinion, age is not a factor. Anyway, that's it for this week's No Filter Q&A. This episode will be going up on Monday, November the 18th. As a reminder, if you do have any questions related to your nutritional plan or workout program, please feel free to email me those questions at nick@foreverfitperformance.com, or you can DM me your questions on my Instagram at @fitcosgrove_. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for supporting my YouTube channel, my online coaching business, my in-house coaching business. I truly do appreciate all the support and feedback that I get from all of you. Thanks again and have a fantastic week. Bye for now.